morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. April 11th. Here to provide you some updates and reminders based on the information that we've been receiving. And start off with saying thank you for everyone that's been responding and providing feedback to the emails in the last video that we did. We very much appreciate it and glad that what we've been doing has been helpful. Hope has provided some clarity to something that's still fairly unclear. But things are progressing and changing quickly, and I'll make sure you have the most up-to-date details. Before we dive in, just want to remind us always that this is our opinion and our understanding based on the information that we've been receiving. This is not a legal opinion and not set in stone, as things are still changing frequently. But like jump right in on the loan program, starting with the PPP loans. Jatin, where are we with the banks on applications?
So with the PPP loans, one of the questions we still keep getting is I want to talk about the loans. The PPP is separate from the economic injury disaster. So with the PPP loans, there's three statuses really. There's people that have applied. There are banks that are still accepting. There's banks that are not accepting. And there's banks that have reached their limit. For the people that have already applied, I think you're just going to pretty much wait and see what we need to do. And then for people that have questions about, they don't know where to go, call our office. We have a couple banks that are still accepting clients that you do not have to be a part of their bank or current client. We'll get you in contact with them. Banks that we know are completely closed are Wells Fargo, Bank of America, First Federal. We know that South State Bank has opened their loans up, and so has First Citizens. I believe First Citizens may be asking their clients to look for alternatives because of the amount of volume of loans they've taken in. That's the current status of all the banks.
Okay. And for those business owners that have already got their loans filed with their banks, what do they need to remember when they start getting their money? Because some businesses we've heard have actually started receiving funds already.
Right, so let me explain about the receiving the money. The first thing that we do know is why has someone got the money and I haven't? The reason some people haven't gotten their money is because the PPP loan, because it's with the bank, it depends on when the banks have processed or submitted your loans. What we do know is that when your bank submits a loan, they will receive something from the SBA that attaches a PLP number to your loan. Banks are supposed to start distributing funds 10 days after they receive this number. Then the next question to add to that is, what do we need to do with the money? Remember, once the money is released, there's question 20 on the Treasury's FAQ from the link on our website. We want to remind everyone, please, please, please keep going to that website and updating that document. We should have a direct link to it on our website because they're updating it, seems like every 3 to 4 days. But with the money is going to start once you receive the first disbursement from the bank. So the day you get it, from that day to 8 weeks, that's where you have to keep records. We have created an Excel spreadsheet that we're finalizing. So for our clients, call in and go to a meeting with us real quick to keep the proper documentations, and we'll email that Excel spreadsheet on request. The next thing is, what do we need to know? One of the things I want to talk about is the careful expenditure, tracking of expenditures. It seems like it's pretty clear on how to track payroll. It's gross payroll, plus insurance benefits, plus retirement benefits, and the South Carolina unemployment, which is SUTA, or other respective state SUTAs. What we don't know yet is what are going to be included as interest. They say mortgage interest, so we believe it's going to be only facility related, not equipment and all those loans. But one of the questions we've been getting is second loans on real estate. We're just not sure. And then the utilities, they haven't provided proper guidance. Obviously, we know that it's going to be this water, sewer, electric, and gas. But with telephones and internet be included, we're just not sure. So that's kind of where we stand on money use and when you should get it.
Okay, great. And what about the EID loans and the EEI grants, the other half of the program. Are there any updates on how they're going to be calculating those loans and grants?
Okay. Yeah. The grant portion of it, you still have to apply for the loan directly with the SBA website. But the grant portion, we're hearing a lot of different things. First of all, there has been no guidance or no legislation that says exactly how they're going to pay it out. But I have been on the phone with the SBA in South Carolina, and one of the things we've heard is the grant portion will be determined by $1,000 per employee, which is kind of surprising because we were hoping that it wasn't going to be related to payroll to give relief to companies that may not necessarily have been at payroll. But it makes sense why they're doing it that way, because it potentially can be tied into the PPP forgiveness. The other thing is, for those of you guys who are looking to apply for the actual economic disaster grant, the 3.75% loan, three things that I want to go over. Number one, there is nowhere on the application where you can request the loan amount. Number two, I am not sure on how they are going to calculate the loan because it hasn't been released on these websites. But Patrick, you said you've seen some information on that?
Yes, it's unconfirmed reports, and not so much about how they're going to be calculating it, but more that they're running out of money already in this program. So if they've been telling you, oh, you can potentially qualify for this amount, or you can qualify for up to $2 million with the loan, it's probably going to be less than that they've been telling you to this point, or than you might expect. So don't expect, unless they change the funding, necessarily to get quite as much as you were hoping out of this program.
One thing I want to notice, everyone's worried about running out of money. What I think people should also consider is, I'm not so much worried about the federal government running out of money because they just opened up the program to sole proprietor yesterday. What I'm concerned about is banks closing down how much they're willing to lend. So if you haven't done your application or your application is submitted, please follow up with your bank to make sure that you are going to get processed and they will disperse funds to you. If not, you really need to consider moving on to another bank.
And just to clarify, that's for the PPP,
That's totally for the PPP.
EID.
The EID loan and the economic grant is 100% through the SBA directly.
Okay. So on the EID loans and grant, if you filed your application, what should you do if you haven't heard anything at this point?
Good, great. There's two things on that. Number one is the date you filed. We're hearing from, like I said, we were on the conference call with SBA, and then I actually had a client, and I sat with the client on the phone calling the 800. When we went through to an agent, they had stated that if you applied for the loan before April 1st, there was some kind of problem in their system, and they're asking people to reapply. So if you fall into that pre-April 1, and then even if you haven't responded, there should be a 1-800 number that you receive with a confirmation number for the loan. So please check on the status of your loan, especially if you applied before April 1st.
And just to confirm, that's not anything that SBA has officially released that we've seen. This one agent telling us this, but it makes sense based on the lack of activity at this point. So that's why we're saying call instead of just go ahead and reapply.
And it does kind of throw up some caution for us, because if you apply that long and they haven't responded back to you, that tells me that they probably don't have them processed in the system pre-April 1st. So please call. Now the next part, Patrick, you've been working with the personal side of this, and our last couple emails have strictly been for, well, not strictly, but mainly been for businesses. So we'd like to take this time for all the individuals to catch you up on things that the individual side of this stimulus package has done. The biggest thing is, what is the status of the recovery rebates for individuals?
Sure. The IRS has said that they're beginning to release money for those that they have direct deposit information for. We're hoping, expecting it's going to start hitting bank accounts this week, so keep an after Easter, you'll start receiving your money there. If you don't receive it by direct deposit, or you haven't given the IRS your information, or there's some kind of error and they can't get it to you that way, they will be sending paper checks after they process the direct deposit. They've said that they're going to do that based on need and retirement. So if you're lower income or are retired and you're on Social Security, you're probably going to be prioritized on the paper check side and be getting them sooner. But it could take anywhere up to 3 months to receive your rebate if you're receiving it by paper check. So we encourage just be patient with that. There's nothing we can do to speed it up. It'll come when the IRS has a chance to get to it, and that will just take time with the volume of checks that they're going to be printing.
One other thing, if you don't receive the checks or you believe you're eligible, the 2020 tax return will reconcile it. So if you don't receive the money and you're eligible for it, your 2020 tax return will allow you to take a credit for the amount you should have received.
Yes.
The second thing is there's the IRS update for due dates for filing and payments. Are there any changes from the original release?
Yes, they've released some updated guidance recently. They moved second quarter estimated payments. They had moved the first quarter, which would have been due April 15th to July 15th, but they left the second quarter intact, which was June 15th. So it was a situation where you could have ended up having to pay your second quarter estimate before your first. They've moved that now, so they're both July 15th. So you're going to be having two due at the same time unless they push them back again. But at least it's a little more consistent now. They've also moved other tax return dates. They had already moved individuals to July 15th. They've moved pretty much everything that was due April 15th to July 15th now without needing to file for an extension. The big one for that is gift tax returns. Those had been still April 15th. They have officially moved, so you don't have to worry about those yet. And they also provided some additional guidance on due dates. One of the questions we've had has been, with the due date moving, has the due date to contribute to your IRA and your HSA moved to where you can contribute them up, typically up until April 15th, and count them for your prior year tax return. They have confirmed by the IRS website that those due dates have moved as well. So if you have a IRA or a HSA, you can fund those up until July 15th and still count them on your 2019 tax returns. Gives us a little more flexibility there.
And just to reiterate this section so there's no confusion, this is for individuals. So individual income tax, business tax returns, there are separate rules for business taxes, i.e. payroll taxes for the federal government, and the local and state tax laws for sales tax, payroll taxes have not necessarily moved to July 15th. We've been getting a lot of questions about retirement accounts and how this deadline and how the stimulus package affects retirees.
Yes.
Any major points that you want to hit on for that?
Yes, there's a couple of big issues with retirement accounts, and it kind of splits into two categories. The first would be those who are not of retirement age yet. Normally, when you take money out of a retirement account, you're going to be subject to two different taxes. You're going to be subject to ordinary income tax and then a 10% penalty, unless you have an exception that lets you take it out without penalty. They have officially added an exception for virus-related challenges, so you can get out of the 10% penalty if you're struggling for funds and need to tap your retirement accounts. That's IRAs, 401ks across the board. It's not limited to just IRAs. The other element they've added to this is new, and that what they let you do with retirement distributions now is spread out the ordinary tax hit, because you're still going to have that ordinary income tax at whatever your tax rate is. But now they are saying you can spread that out over up to 3 years. You pay 1/3 in 2020, 1/3 in 2021, and 1/3 in 2022 of that tax on the withdrawal. And they're giving you the opportunity to pay it back as well if your situation improves. So if you take out a sum of money, you pay tax on 1/3 of it in 2020. In 2021, instead of paying that tax, you can replace that money into your IRA or 401k, and that does not affect any of your ordinary contribution limits. You're just basically treating it like a loan, but a loan with 0% interest from your plan. So you put the money back in, then you don't have to pay the tax for that year. And if you still want to contribute above and beyond repaying, you can still do that. Repaying is not going to affect anything about how much you can contribute. So it's providing a lot of flexibility to access this money and avoid the pain that you normally have from taking money out of retirement for retirement age. For the other side of the coin, retirement age people, it's the opposite. The IRS is providing the opportunity to not take money if you don't need to, particularly as the stock market is dropping rapidly, recovering some now, but still suffering some pain. If you are ordinarily required to take a required minimum distribution, you do not have to take one for 2020. And it's looking like that is not going to apply just to ordinary retirement accounts, but also to inherited retirement accounts. If you inherited a retirement account and you're on that track of having to take money out every year to deplete it, it looks like you will not have to for 2020. Still looking for positive confirmation on that, but what we've seen so far is indicating that's going to be the case.
What to add on to that? What if you've already taken money out because you broke it out by month or you took it earlier? Can you repay it, or do we have any guidance on that?
Don't have guidance that I've seen on that yet as to whether you can repay it. My initial reaction is probably not. You're probably stuck with what you've taken so far, but if we receive additional clarity on that, we will definitely be updating, because that would definitely be a potential plan for individuals that don't need the money.
Right. And then maybe you want to consider freezing if you're on a monthly plan or quarterly distribution. Go ahead and freeze the rest of the year. Anything else?
I think that pretty much covers it. There is much more out there, both on the individual and business side. We are continually updating our website. If you'd like more information, please visit that, BufordCPA.com. We have a number of links and a number of articles that we put on there, both on the items we've discussed today and other items related to these laws, which we're keeping as updated as we can. So I just encourage you to follow that, and we will do our best to keep you informed as we go.
And to add to that, what we'd like for you guys to do is please follow that, because we are only referencing and sending you to the government websites. I strongly encourage you guys to be careful listening to people based on what their guidance is. That's why Patrick stated at the beginning. This is our opinion, but our opinion is based on guidance that we've seen. So please, please, please make sure that you are reading the actual laws or things that are being sent by the U.S. Treasury, because it is their job to interpret the law that was passed. Thank you guys for joining us. And if you have any questions, as always during this time, please set up a conference call. We're trying to limit appointments to video and conference calls only as we go through this time. And also for our clients that we haven't filed their tax returns, we are not closing in the short term, and we will start working on those and getting those out to you as soon as possible. And thank you guys for all your support.
Thank you.